Total Screen proudly presents their official podcast, On Screen, with your hosts, Tyson Gifford and William Roerig. Hello, everybody, and welcome to On Screen, the official podcast of the Total Screen. My name is Tyson.
My name is Will.
And today we've got some not E3 coverage. We've got some trailers in our On Beat section, some news stories as well. We got an On the Horizon segment, but our main topic is going to be predictions for the June 2024 Nintendo Direct, which we don't know when it's coming, only that it's coming in June. And we thought it might be this week, so we said we're either going to do predictions or we're going to do coverage of the Direct that happened. It did not happen, so we're going to do predictions. Also, before we even mention what's coming next week, it's going to be the same thing for next week. Next week will either be a topic that we have ready, that we have loaded up and ready, or it'll be the Nintendo Direct if the Nintendo Direct happens. Same thing for the week after that. If the week after that, if the Nintendo Direct happens, we're going to cover that. If not, we'll cover something else. It's going to be like that until we get to the end of June because Nintendo Directs are one of our favorite topics to cover. So it'll always take priority. But let's get started with our On the Horizon segment.
On the horizon. On the horizon.
On the Horizon is where we talk about what's coming up in the next week or so, and we're going to start things out with House of the Dragon, which returns on Sunday, June 16th on HBO and Max. So I'm looking forward to the return of this. They've been inundating us with all these catch up on what happened last season type videos from HBO. There's been 4 or 5 of those so far. Lots of interviews, a few clips that have been put out and stuff, but I'm ready for the actual show. So
yeah, oh yeah, for
bring
sure.
it on.
I don't think it needs to be stated at this point. Yeah, I'm ready for it.
Yeah, I watched the first 2 trailers, and now I don't even care to watch any of the other stuff they put out. Just give us the fucking show.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm already sold.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Next up, we have Trigger Warning. This is a movie that stars Jessica Alba as John Wick.
Yeah.
This is coming on Friday, June 21st to Netflix.
That title is so bad.
Then also on Friday, June 21st, Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree DLC is coming out on PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X.
Goodbye. You won't be seeing me for a while.
Are you ready for it? Apparently there's 2 bosses you have to beat before you can actually play the game.
Yeah, you have to beat Radon and you have to beat Mog, which is an optional boss in the main game. So you could get through the story without ever encountering him. But I guess because his story is part of the DLC story, you have to beat him, which is fair.
Are you ready then?
Yeah, I'm ready. I already did that on my save file. I beat every boss. I got the platinum trophy.
Okay, so you're ready for some Erdtree action.
Yes.
And then lastly, the Bikeriders is coming on Friday, June 21st as well in movie theaters. This is basically Austin Butler and Tom Hardy in an old-timey version of Sons of Anarchy.
Interesting.
It's just Sons of Anarchy, but in the 50s or something, and starring Austin Butler and Tom Hardy. That's just basically what it looks like to me.
Nice. It's got Tom Hardy, so.
Yeah, and Austin Butler.
Yeah, and Austin Butler.
So it's got cool. Elvis and Bane.
Yeah.
It'll be are you ready, my son?
Are you ready?
And then he's gonna say, I sure am.
Or Austin Butler's gonna be his character from Dune.
Gonna be bald with no eyebrows.
Yeah, exactly.
But that is our On the Horizon segment, and now we're gonna move on to On Beat. On Beat. We have a pretty healthy On Beat section this week. We've got, it's 5 news stories, 5 regular trailers, and then I think 9 not E3 trailers. I say not E3 because this is when E3 would be happening, but there isn't E3 anymore, but they're still putting out all the trailers. So we just call that not E3. But we're going to start off with our news stories. It starts with The Boys is going to be ending with season 5. So season 4 is the one that's coming up. And season 5 is going to be the final season. Season 4, I think, comes out in like 2 days from when we're recording this. It's like comes out on Friday, I think. It's here Friday or Thursday, I think. It comes out very soon. By the time this podcast is out, the first couple episodes of season 5 will already be up on Amazon. Let's just say that. But yeah, it's going to be ending with season 5. I think that's good news. I think the biggest problem with The Boys is that it, treads water too much. And it's about time to get moving.
I mean, that was my problem with season 3. Like, I love season 3 as a whole, individually, moments to moments, and obviously Jensen Ackles as, like, Soldier Boy was, like, pitch perfect. It was just perfect. But the problem was, like, at the end of the season, it's like everything pretty much returned to the status quo. Mm-hmm. And like nothing like really moved forward story-wise.
So it's all back to stasis and like nothing changed. And it's like, it's just, it got a little old. Like we noticed this with season 2 and then it happened again with season 3. And it's like, come on, you guys gotta progress now.
Yeah, exactly. So I hope like them announcing like, a final season 5 is going to be a final season kind of like lights a fire to like, okay, now we gotta be making progress towards an ending.
Yeah. So hopefully we get some actual, like, bigger consequences and stuff going through season 4 and into season 5. So that'll be interesting to see how that unfolds. Next up, Lego Horizon Adventures is going to be coming to the Nintendo Switch. This is a Lego version of the Horizon franchise. Kind of like how they do the Lego Star Wars and Lego Harry Potter and Lego Marvel and Lego Batman. They do all of those, like, games, and you have those original IPs and then you have it's the Lego version of it or something, and it's kind of a parody and a more fun kind of version, but it takes influences from it. Well, we're getting that with Horizon, which is a Sony exclusive first-party PlayStation game, but this one's coming to Nintendo Switch. So it's just really interesting. We've seen games coming from Microsoft, but that's kind of been Microsoft's strategy is to start, going multi-platform. Sony has started shifting in that direction when it comes to like PC, where we've gotten, I think both of the Spider-Man games are on PC now. I know the first one is. I'm not sure. Is the second one on PC?
No.
But is Miles Morales on PC? I'm not sure.
I believe it is.
And then we know that Ghost of Tsushima just recently came out on PC. I think the first God of War is, but Ragnarok isn't yet.
Yeah, Miles Morales is on Steam, so yeah.
Yeah, so they've been slowly bringing some of their big games over to Steam, but they haven't brought them to any competing consoles.
No.
And now they're bringing us over to Nintendo Switch, which is really interesting, and I think the kind of thing that makes this even more interesting is that people might forget, Nintendo and Sony are working together on something else, too. They're doing the Legend of Zelda movie. It's being done
with
through
Sony Pictures. Yes.
So there's already some, like, that was weird already, and this is even weird.
Right. I didn't see it as weird, because, like, Sony Pictures is a completely separate division from the gaming division, Sony Computer Entertainment.
It is kind of weird if you consider that's how they secured the Sony, or the Spider-Man license for the games and stuff, was because they had control of the franchise for the movie. So there is some crossover that makes it a little weird.
And that's Avi Arad on the Sony side who was pursuing those, my understanding was he was pursuing Zelda for Sony Pictures.
Yeah, it's just it's interesting because Nintendo also, they did their Mario movie, the CG one, and that was hugely successful. That was done through Universal.
Yes.
So it's kind of weird that they're not, I understand that they wouldn't be going through the Minion studio again, to do Zelda. It doesn't match that. But it's kind of weird that they're not doing Universal, one of Universal's other studios,
Right. Especially since they have the relationship with Universal through the theme parks.
Yeah. It's weird. It's just a weird kind of series of events, but now we're getting...
weird, but this is a first-party developed Sony game showing up on a Nintendo console. It's just wild.
So I didn't even look for this. I didn't even think to look for this now, but is this coming on Xbox as well?
No.
Okay.
There's no Xbox version, so this is only PS5, Switch, and PC are the announced platforms.
Okay. I wonder if they're gonna end up doing a mobile version too, because if they can do it on Switch, then they can do it on current mobile.
Oh yeah, easily. iPhone 15 can run Resident Evil 4 remake. So you can do it on mobile easy. Yeah.
So I wonder if it's going to end up showing up there too. But it's just kind of interesting that this is like very weird, you know?
Oh yeah.
There was a trailer for the game. We're not talking about the trailers because it's not so much the trailer that's interesting about this. It's just the fact that this is coming
it's
out
just
on
the fact that
Switch, you know?
Yeah, and the fact and there was like I remember like after this was announced, there's a lot of cope by Sony fanboys saying, "Oh, like trying to invent conspiracy theories for why this was a thing." Like Lego forced Sony to do it to have the license or whatever.
But this is actually like developed by Sony too, isn't it?
Yes, it's being developed by Guerrilla Games. Who, you know, they're the creators of the Horizon IP, and they're a first-party Sony studio, you know?
Yeah, and so that also means that they have Switch development kits.
Yeah.
It's just
a Sony
There's so many little
first-party
wrinkles.
studio. Yeah, a first-party Sony studio has Nintendo Switch development kits. Like, yeah.
I mean, it's conceivable that a Sony first-party studio might have Switch successor development kits. Because now they're a Switch developer. And so they might end up having successor development kits too. Because we're at that time, you know, where like Switch developers are getting those.
This might be a cross-gen. This might get like re-announced for Switch too whenever that gets officially revealed.
Yeah, it's like the more you think about it, the more like weird it gets and the more wrinkles come out of it, you know?
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, VGC, Guerrilla. This is actually being co-developed by Guerrilla Games and Studio Gobo, which I'm not familiar with Studio Gobo.
But they go bow or they go home.
Yeah, but yeah, like VGC asked the representative from Guerrilla Games, you know, about the decision to release this on the Switch, and he just said like, oh well, we're developing this game and we want it to be for everyone, and the Switch is really a platform that allows us to broaden the audience.
You might not know this, but is the old Lego developer still around? That was what, Traveler Tales, right?
Traveler's Tales, I believe.
Are they still around? Are they still doing Lego? Is that like, I'm kind of curious about that.
Question, because like I haven't heard of them in a minute.
But yeah, it just makes me curious about that they're
hear
not
any news about them shutting down or anything. Yeah, they're not involved in this project at all. Which is kind of strange. Yeah, right.
Like we said, every time you start to think about it, there's more wrinkles that are weird about this story.
Yeah, they did the Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga for PS5 and Xbox and Switch in 2022. That was their last project.
So weird.
Yeah.
Okay, our next news story is another thing about multiplat, and that is that Octopath Traveler 1 and 2 are now available on all 3 consoles and Gamepass.
Finally, after years, it's
finally
on everything.
You had mentioned what I had forgotten, which was that Octopath Traveler 1, it was on Xbox. It was on Xbox One, right?
Yes, it was on Xbox One.
And it was on Stadia as well. I knew that. I remembered that. And then
it was not on PlayStation until
It wasn't on PlayStation, but it was on Switch. And then Octopath Traveler 2, like at launch. So the first game only launched on Switch, and then it came out.
Yeah, it was a Switch exclusive. Octopath 2 launched on PlayStation and Switch at the same time.
And PC, I think, right?
Might have been PC. I'm not 100%. I just remember like Octopath 2 not being a Switch exclusive at launch because it was also on PlayStation.
And Stadia too, even though it was closed down at that time.
Yeah. No. Still launched on Stadia.
You could buy it, but you couldn't play it.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. But yeah, so that's 2 of the 3 Octopath Traveler games now on all 3 systems and on Game Pass. If you have Game Pass, you can play them. I love the Octopath games. They're basically 16-bit RPGs, but with like modern conveniences and like weird modern like lighting touches and things like that. It's cool art style. That's in some other games too, like the Live Alive remake and Triangle Strategy. And there's a Dragon Quest game that people have been waiting for that we should be seeing some stuff for pretty soon, I think, actually. That's going to be also be using that kind of art style and from that studio. But yeah, now it's going to be available on all 3 systems, except there's one version that's only available on mobile. One game that's like a spin-off that's only available on mobile that pisses me off. It's like, really? You're going to bring all those over and pretend that you're completely multi-plat with that franchise now, and that mobile game is still mobile exclusive where it doesn't belong?
Probably going to always be mobile exclusive. To be honest, Square probably forgot it existed at this point, so...
I mean, it just looks like another Octopath game. It looks fine. Like, it looks good. Like, I don't know why this came to mobile in the first place. I don't understand, but.
Well, it's funny because, like,
it's not like a gotcha game.
It's not uncommon for Japanese games to have mobile spin-offs. It goes back to, like, even, like, in, like, the Java phone games, there's, like, all kinds of, like, weird mobile, like, spin-off titles for, like, all kinds that were just, like, on those Java phones.
There was a
like,
No More
lost to
Heroes
time.
game on mobile.
Yeah. So nothing new.
It's just,
Yeah.
it's weird because it wasn't like a gacha game. It wasn't like a
No.
free-to-play type game. So it doesn't make sense that it wasn't just put on everything.
Right.
It should have just been DLC for the first game on Switch, you know?
That would have been nice.
Yeah. So that is Square Enix's push towards being multi-platform that they've been talking about for a while, that they don't subscribe anymore to the exclusive strategy that they had where they would put, some games were only on Switch and some games were only on PS5, and that whole kind of strategy they're kind of done with. They've kind of assigned that as being responsible for most of their current failures, instead of looking at things like their insistence on making, what do you call them? Like the fucking, what do you call those games like that? God, they did that one with, was it Platinum that they did, that Babylon's Fall or whatever that everyone hated?
Live service?
Yeah, live service games.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like they're still not blaming their insistence on trying to do live service games. They're just blaming the exclusive thing. But hey, if more people get to play more games, that's good for me, so.
Right, yeah, exactly. Nothing wrong with that.
Our next news story is that Yann Demange, you might not know who that is. He was a director of some of the episodes of Lovecraft Country on HBO, has departed as director of the MCU Blade movie, which seems to be going through some literal hell right now.
Yeah, it's so strange. Like, I really would love to know the story behind this movie after all said and done, because, yeah, this movie seems to, like, very weirdly, be stuck in development hell, and it's the simplest of premises, man. I don't get it. It's a guy killing vampires.
Yeah.
You see what the first movie did? Just do that.
Yeah. Just remake the first movie, but throw in some MCU cameos.
Right, yeah, exactly. It can't be difficult. I don't know what they're trying to do with this franchise. It's like, if you're trying to, like, make an Oscar movie, don't.
Yeah.
Just make an action movie. Come on. That's all the people want.
Yeah. And then our last piece of news is that Tim Meadows has been cast in Peacemaker Season 2 as an original character named Langston Fleury, who is speculated as being an Argus agent.
Yeah, an Argus agent. Which, fantastic. I mean, I can't comment on the character, obviously, but, it's
Tim Meadows.
I mean, it's Tim Meadows. I love Tim Meadows. He was great. He is one of the most underrated comedians because he is, like, consistently, like, fantastic and everything. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't have, like, he never had, like, the profile, like, starting power of, like, Adam Sandler or.
Yeah. He's from that generation on
Rock.
SNL, but he didn't take off in the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. He was like, it's funny because, like, he was from that era with Chris Farley, Chris Rock, Adam Sandler, David Spade, and then they all moved on, and he kind of, like, he's stuck on SNL. He was on SNL for a long time. He was still on it, I think, well into the Will Ferrell era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he left sometime around, like, the Lonely Island era.
Yes.
But yeah, he never really took off. He's always had work.
Yes,
like, you always see him pop up in things.
Oh, yeah.
But,
that's right. Yeah, like, because he had that character on SNL, the Ladies' Man. I remember, like, they gave him his own movie with that character, and they tried to, like, launch, like, a big, that didn't end up going anywhere. I think that movie flopped. But, Tim Meadows is fantastic. I always loved Tim Meadows.
You know what we saw him in recently? I was trying to look up what he's been recently. I was just gonna say Dream Scenario.
Yeah.
I forgot he was in that.
The dean of the university. Yeah.
I forgot he was in that. And then we just looked at that. I'm like, yeah, we did see him. And so I'm like, what have I seen him in recently? And I'm like, oh yeah, it was Dream Scenario.
Right.
Yeah, but he's been in a bunch of stuff. Like, he's consistently had work. He just hasn't really had a big breakout role or anything.
Yeah.
It'll be cool to see him working with James Gunn on something.
Oh, absolutely.
And then that takes us to our trailer section. So we're going to be starting off with our non-game trailers because not E3 is going on right now. And so there's a lot of gaming trailers we're going to cover, but we're going to start off with the non-gaming trailers. So the first thing we're going to be talking about is the Decameron, I think it's pronounced. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Like, I was, like, asking you before the podcast, and like I was hoping you would be like, aha, yeah, this is how it's pronounced. I'm like, but you did it, and I was like, oh, okay. I'm still in the dark.
Yeah, I'm still in the dark on everything with this movie. That's the main reason we're talking about it, is because we're so in the dark.
At first, I wanted to like completely dismiss it. But I just thought, this is like the weirdest trailer for anything I've ever seen. So like, I mean, in the way that like, it almost feels like anti-marketing. Like, it just leaves you so confused. It doesn't leave you, like, interested in, like, watching whatever the hell this is.
Reminds me of, like, the first trailer for Fight Club.
Yeah.
In the way that, like, the first trailer for Fight Club did not sell me on Fight Club. It was like, I have no idea what this is. This looks stupid. But it's David Fincher, so I'm a little bit interested, you know?
And I got the same thing for this. And then it became even more baffling when they said this was, like, a new series. I'm like, because, okay, we should say, like, the content of the trailer. The content of the trailer isn't very much.
It's just like a big party in, like, the Dark Ages.
It's the Dark Ages, Europe. Like, it looks like they say it's like the 14th century. And, like, it just shows, like, a bunch of people partying at some party, and they're playing Blue Monday. I mean, they're not playing Blue Monday in the scene, I suppose. The music is playing over the trailer. And then, like, as progressively goes, it shows people, like, getting sick and collapsing. So I'm guessing, like, this is set during the plague. And I'm okay. Like, and then they said it's a series. I'm like, it's an entire series about people at a party getting sick and dying. I don't understand. Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah. We gotta see something else to see what this actually is.
Yeah, exactly. This is the most baffling trailer for anything I've seen in a long time.
Next up, we got a trailer for The Wild Robot. So the first trailer that came out for this, or like teaser that I saw, really just did nothing for me. But this one's a lot more interesting.
Yeah, this one's interesting. This looks like a fun story.
It looks a lot like a Miyazaki type movie, like that kind of a concept of a movie, you know?
It's like, it says, it's a robot that's like out in the wilderness, and it's kind of like having to learn about the world on its own, and like through like the animals of the forest.
Mm-hmm. And it starts developing some kind of sentience or consciousness through that process. And
it develops like a parental attachment to like this bird, this chickling it finds.
Yeah, what's the term they use when they said it in the trailer? No, I mean when
it imprints?
Yeah, it imprints on him.
Yeah.
It thinks this robot is its parent.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, so it's just kind of looks somewhat interesting now. Like the original trailer was just kind of like, oh, they're being kind of artsy with it, but it doesn't really look that good or anything. And then this new trailer, it's actually like, okay, I'm starting to kind of get the story now, and it's actually looking kind of interesting. So yeah, so that looks pretty good. Next up, we got a trailer for My Spy, The Eternal City. Now, you didn't even know, right, that there was an old movie called My Spy, or like not an old movie, but like a previous movie called My Spy.
No, I didn't.
The same cast.
I mean, I got that immediately though, because the trailer tells you it's a sequel off the bat, because it says
they reference
she's older, he's wiser, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess this is a sequel.
What's so weird about this to me is that, like, I saw the My Spy movie and thought it was actually a perfectly entertaining kind of, movie, like the kind of like action movie where like a big tough guy's now put in charge of a kid kind of thing. It happens all the time. Most of them are horrible. This one was actually pretty good. And
so usually get like some wrestler or something.
Yeah, they usually get some wrestler like Hulk Hogan or The Rock or something. Usually end up putting them in like a ballerina costume at some point. I don't know.
Yeah. But Dave Bautista, he wants to be a serious actor at this point. So
this was a better one. This was like that concept done right, like the
they got like, well, it's funny too, because like usually like the focus in those movies is all put on like star, like if they got Arnold Schwarzenegger, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger, or it's Hulk Hogan, and then the rest of the cast is like
not the Tuma.
And then the rest of the cast is like kind of whatever. It's like, these are just like,
they're just there,
just like random, mostly like unknowns, who are just there. But this, like, they filled out the supporting cast with like comedians, like well-known comedians.
Kim Jong, Kristen Shaw.
Kristen Shaw, yeah.
And they're the scene stealers. They steal the biggest scenes in the trailer with them,
Right, yeah, exactly. And the biggest scenes in the trailer are, with them. Like it does look funny, and like Dave Bautista's good at comedy.
Yeah.
He's good at it.
Yeah, I mean, we know that from Guardians, he was a good comedic character in that. But But it's yeah, I'm actually interested in seeing this. It looks good. It looks like they had several funny scenes. There's a great like kiss scene at the end of the trailer with Christian Solid and Kim Jong that's just hilarious. It's so awkward and weird and just
oh yeah, pitch
perfect done. Like it's not like bad awkward. It's like really good awkward. Yeah, like it looks pretty good. But the weird thing is that, like I said, the first one was done right. It was good. It was a perfectly entertaining movie. But I didn't watch it and think like, oh, this will have a sequel. Like I never in my mind would have thought this would have a sequel. And if it did have a sequel, I would have expected it to be like a year later. Like, you know, a really close follow-up movie, you know? And this is like several years down the line. Like the girl who was like a little girl in the first one is now like a teenager. Yeah, and it's the same actress. You know, she's done a few roles now. She was in like the Dungeons and Dragons movie and, you know, she's been in a few other things now and stuff. And so it's just kind of weird that like they're returning to this. And that brings us to our next movie, which is the same kind of thing. It's a movie that I just didn't expect. This one's going to be a series, but it's a follow-up of a movie.
Yeah, it's follow-up to a movie. It's weird that it's like a follow-up. It's not a sequel to the movie. It's now a TV series. Like that's the weirdest part to me.
Well, to me, the weirdest part is just like who asked for this?
Nobody. Yeah, I didn't ask for this.
And what we're talking about is Sausage Party, which has a TV series follow-up coming called Sausage Party Foodtopia. Who asked for this? Right. Like it just makes no sense to me.
This was kind of like I watched the movie and it was like, okay, it was a terrible movie, but it's like, okay, fine. But it's wasted like 2 hours. It's a one-note joke. It's literally a one-note joke.
Even the people that liked the movie, it's not like they loved the movie. It's not like they were calling out, like there's not like a cult following going, why isn't there a sequel to this? Or why don't we have more of this? There isn't like anything like that, but it's got a cast that's big enough that if
it's a joke is like, oh, this is like a Pixar movie with like sentient inanimate objects, but what if the sentient inanimate objects were like people's food, and how horrifying is that? Like that's the joke. And okay,
what if they're just really raunchy?
Yeah, that's the entire joke, and it's like, okay, for 2 hours that's great enough, but like
it was a great trailer.
You're gonna run,
I mean the original.
Yeah, the original. You're gonna run this joke for like an entire series now? Like I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean it's just like a really crude spoof of like children's animated stuff that's done like in a, you know, adult humor, you know, kind of thing.
Right.
But the thing is, it's like there's lots of stuff out there that like has a passionate fan base. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't successful, but it has a passionate fan base.
I don't know of any passionate fan base for this.
That's what I'm saying. It's like it makes sense that they've continued to do stuff with, say, like Evil Dead. Evil Dead is not a successful franchise. It just isn't. No. I love it. It's, you know, some of my favorite movies, period. Like the first Evil Dead is one of my favorite movies ever.
It has a passionate fan base, and you can easily like find that, you know, like if you just Google the movies, it has a huge
cult following, and there's people that want more of it. And so we ended up getting like 3 movies, and we ended up getting a TV series, and we ended up getting a remake, and then like another follow-up one, and we have a third one in development now. That all makes sense.
So you know what this is, and why this makes sense. You know, why it doesn't make sense, but it makes sense is because we are now in this era where so much content is being produced or having being produced that it's all about like IP. It's not really about like, oh,
but there's no value to this IP.
But that doesn't matter because like we're mining content. So like companies are like looking at like IP they own and saying, okay, what can we do with this? Yeah. We own Sausage Party. Like Seth Rogen made that, right? People like that, I'm sure. We should make that a series. We should capitalize on this.
This made sense when they made Knuckles.
Yeah.
You know, the TV series Knuckles.
Sonic has a fan base. Like,
exactly. This makes no sense. There's no cult following. There's no like passionate, you know, underground enjoyment for this. There's no like, this isn't being memed. You don't see memes from Sausage Party showing up in like text chats or Discord. Like there's nothing that would draw any reason to do this.
No,
it's just so
except
weird.
For like executives like not understanding the value of IP. We got executives thinking like any old thing that they find that they own has intrinsic value because like it's been done before.
Yeah. Next up, the last of our regular trailers, are before we get into the game trailers, is Arcane Season 2. We're just kind of acknowledging it. We're not really talking about it. The problem here is that, well, Will and I both enjoyed Arcane. We've also both only seen the first episode.
Yeah, I mean, I'm ashamed.
Yeah. It's just one of those things for me that I haven't gotten around to it, you know? Like, I keep meaning to, and I just haven't gotten around to watching it.
Yeah, I haven't gotten around to watching it. I mean, I admit, like, I kind of did forget. And it's not like I don't want to. I want to.
There's just so much content these days that you lose track, you know?
I want to be able to discuss this trailer, believe me. I mean, I did enjoy Arcane. It's beautifully animated.
Yeah.
Has some great performances.
Trailer for season 2 looked great. I had no idea what was going on.
I just need to finish. I just need to watch season 1 before I can jump into season 2, and I fully plan on doing that.
Yeah. Same with me. Eventually. Maybe. Sometime. Yeah. If I remember. We live in the era of a deluge of content, you know? So it's like you just get lost in it sometimes. But yeah, that's it for our regular trailers. Now we're going to move on to our not E3 trailers. And we're going to be starting things off with Big Boy Boxing, which is part of a new genre that I call, well, if Nintendo's not doing it.
Right? Yeah.
If Nintendo's not going to do an Advance Wars game, then we're going to make Wargroove.
Yeah, we're going to make
Wargroove. If Nintendo's not going to do a Punch-Out game, then we're going to do Big Boy Boxing. And that's basically what this is. This is Punch-Out. Done by a different studio.
Oh yeah. Like I saw it, I'm like, yeah, this is indie studio Punch-Out with like way more out there, characters than anything in Punch-Out.
Yeah, I mean,
Punch-Out's characters are already pretty out there.
Yeah.
So, it looks fun. I'm definitely like down to check it out.
I love Punch-Out.
Same.
I had Punch-Out. I had Super Punch-Out. I had the Wii version of Punch-Out was great too. I had that as well. That was the one where you could, fight Donkey Kong at the end, like it was a secret boss.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And I even had the WiiWare original game where you fought Doc.
Yeah, you fought, Doc Lewis Punch-Out. Like, I had that too. Like, I spent my Wii Platinum coins on that.
Yeah.
My Club Nintendo Platinum coins on that.
I'm a big fan of Punch-Out. I wish they'd bring it back. And yeah, this looks like Punch-Out. It even has like things taken from the Wii version where the characters like mutate and kind of grows. Like that was how the multiplayer worked in the Wii version of Punch-Out. Was that you'd be boxing, like you were both using like Little Joe basically, and then Little Joe could like Hulk out or something.
Lil Mac?
Yeah, Lil Mac, yeah. And Lil Mac could like Hulk out and become like this like giant mutant version of himself. And then it would become like a Punch-Out fight because you'd be one person fighting against another character who's being more like telegraphed moves, like the big bosses in Punch-Out have. And so that's how they figured out how to do it in multiplayer. And you can already see that in this, that you see a character like hulking out and stuff. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's Punch-Out by a different name. But Big Boy Boxing, that looks cool. I'll have to see. I'll just wait for reviews on it to see if it's actually plays well, you know? Cause that's the thing with Punch-Out had such good timing and such good balance, you know, that it's just a matter of, is this going to, like, it looks like Punch-Out, but is it going to play like Punch-Out? Is it going to feel like Punch-Out, you know? I'll wait for reviews to start coming in on it, but if they look positive, then this is like an absolute must buy for me.
Oh yeah.
Next game is Phantom Blade Zero. Tell me why you're excited for Phantom Blade Zero.
Because it looks amazing. It looks like a fantastic, like, action game. There's not much to it. I mean, graphically, it looks amazing. The action looks fantastic. It looks like a Souls-like, but the developers are saying it's not a Souls-like. So
it's got kind of the visual aesthetic of a Souls-like, but it's not supposed to play like one.
Right, yeah. It's got like the massive boss battles.
The play looks more like a Platinum game to me.
Yeah, exactly. It looks like a Platinum game with like a Souls aesthetic, Souls-style bosses and stuff. But yeah, they're saying like, yeah, it's not a Souls-like, it's an action game.
That makes it more interesting to me, because I don't like the Souls gameplay loop at all.
Right, yeah.
But I love Platinum games. And the one thing I do like about Souls is the aesthetic. So the idea that it's kind of using a Souls-like aesthetic, but it's going to be more like Platinum-esque, you know, in its gameplay and stuff, possibly, has me a little intrigued. Next up, we have Perfect Dark. So, yeah, there have been, 2 Perfect Dark games, right? There was the original on the N64, and then there was one on Xbox 360.
Yeah, there was Perfect Dark Zero on the 360, which was the launch game.
And this one's not being done by Rare, I believe?
Right.
Being done by an outside studio?
This is being done by The Initiative, which is a Microsoft-owned studio that they opened like a few years back for the express purpose of developing this game.
And it looks like it's kind of more serious and less weird.
It's The Initiative
Perfect Dark is pretty weird.
Well, it's The Initiative and it's Crystal Dynamics as well. Yeah. It being co-developed. Crystal Dynamics was, did all the modern Tomb Raider games.
Yeah, so what it looks like to me is that the original Perfect Dark was really weird. It kind of lent into the weird stuff. There was like a little traditionally gray alien named Elvis, for example.
Yes.
And the original, it was just a really weird game.
Rare liked being weird back in those days.
It didn't take itself seriously, is what I should say.
Yeah.
This game looks a lot more serious, and it also looks like it's not like a corridor shooter, like a level-based shooter. It looks more like kind of open world or something.
Yeah, I don't think it's open world, but it's more open environments.
Yeah, it looks like you're going to be traversing a city, doing some kind of parkour, doing like some skydiving stuff, doing some actual like spy gameplay stuff rather than just shooting.
Yeah,
this isn't just a straight up shooter. Like, cause the old Perfect Dark, I don't know anything about Zero, but the original Perfect Dark,
I never played
was kind of all about, it was just basically, it was GoldenEye. It was the GoldenEye game.
It was
except
GoldenEye.
They added like more futuristic weapons.
It was one of those things they did, because like they developed GoldenEye and it was like a huge success on the N64. It blew up. But the problem is neither Rare nor Nintendo owned the license to James Bond. So for the follow-up, they decided they were going to basically do GoldenEye 2, but with their own IP.
Mm-hmm.
And they came up with Perfect Dark.
Yeah, and so they did the same thing, but they kind of made it more futuristic. And then we kind of had a spiritual successor to Perfect Dark with the Time Splitter franchise.
Yes.
Which was kind of like, it was some of the people that worked on it,
because it was like
I guess,
some ex-Rare devs.
But it was similar in the sense that it was just a really weird, fun FPS.
Yes.
And then that entire style of FPS just went extinct. It was just gone. Like, nobody was making games like that anymore. They were making much more serious. It became all like Call of Duty and stuff like that, Halo, Call of Duty.
Perfect Dark Zero kind of came out at the best time it could because it came out like as a launch title for the Xbox 360, and that was just right before Call of Duty like really took off.
Mm-hmm.
Although my understanding is Perfect Dark Zero also didn't sell that well, and from like some behind the scenes Rare stuff, like Rare couldn't get Microsoft to greenlight another Perfect Dark like after Zero.
Yeah, and now it's like they're taking the game in a completely different direction.
Yes.
But it's a direction that you're interested in.
It looked good. Yeah, it looked good. And I didn't have any expectations for this, cause I only played Perfect Dark on the N64. It's not like a franchise that's near and dear to my heart or anything. It's it's a game I played and had fun with.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really had any expectations or anticipation from it, but I saw the gameplay trailer. I was like, yeah, this looks fun. I would definitely play this.
I like the skydiving at the beginning. I hope that that's an actual gameplay part and not just
same.
like a cinema or something.
Yeah, I hope that's gameplay.
Because, after Tears of the Kingdom, I just want every game to have me diving into a giant
skydiving.
area.
Right, yeah.
I just want to dive from high into the air into an area. That's all I want to do in games now. They should do that in big boy boxing.
They should, yes. Should have you skydive.
Skydive into the ring to start the fight.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Animal Crossing, the new Animal Crossing game. It's all going to be Sky Islands.
Yeah, there you go.
No, but yeah, so Perfect Dark, just a very different game. It looks like they're still doing some sci-fi elements, not just sci-fi spy stuff, but it looks like there's still alien stuff going on, for example. But it's not the kind of weird, funny alien kind of stuff. It's more serious.
Like Elvis, yeah.
Yeah, it's more like aliens than a little gray alien named Elvis.
Right, yeah, exactly. This is coming from a more serious, again, this is no involvement from anybody involved with the original Perfect Dark in this. So
next game we're going to be talking about is Doom: The Dark Ages. So to me, I've never played any of the Doom games besides the old Doom games.
I was going to say, you had to have at least played the first Doom.
Yeah.
You had to have.
Yeah. Besides that, I haven't played like any of the Doom games. It was never really all that interesting to me. The one thing that I was always interested in with Doom was the soundtrack in the later games, the more recent ones.
Oh, the modern Doom games. If you haven't played Doom and Doom Eternal, I mean, they're awesome.
Yeah, I'm just not really into first-person shooters, so it doesn't really, that's why. But the music is something I was interested in. So when I'm watching this trailer, I'm like really like I'm watching with my ears. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, okay, what are they doing? Because you know what happened with the music, right? With after Doom Eternal, there's a huge falling out between id Software and Mick Gordon, who did the music for the two modern Doom games.
I had no idea.
Oh, huge falling out between them.
Yeah.
He did the two Doom games, and he also did the Wolfenstein games as well. The music for those, and so he was like kind of the id Software music guy for a while. And I mean, think about the way that the Doom music has been memeified on the internet. Like, there's so many like YouTube videos of like, when the Doom music kicks in or something, and it'll be like some scene from a movie, and then like the Doom music kicks in, and like something crazy happens, And it's become so memeified. It's such a huge thing. There was a huge blow up between Mick Gordon and id Software, where they got a huge dispute. There's no way he's working with them again. It's just, I would be blown away if they were working together again. So I was watching with my ears, and immediately I'm like, yeah, the music's not as good. The guitar's kind of not as forward and center. It's not like in the forefront as much as it normally is in the music for Doom. And I'm like, okay. And then I had to kind of like watch the trailer again because I was so focused on the music that I just really wasn't paying attention to anything else. And so then I watched it again and said, okay, this time I'm going to focus on just the game itself. And it looks good. I mean, it looks cool. If I was into that kind of thing, it looks like it looks good. I mean, I think the weapons look cool. I like that it seems like this started with Doom Eternal, the second modern Doom game, where they kind of started making it even more like arcadey. Like where I think Doom 2017 was like a pretty fast-paced and quick shooter, and it had some cool stuff, but they added like a lot more like melee stuff into like Doom Eternal, and a lot more like kind of cool kill moves and that kind of stuff. So it almost feels more like an action game than like a first-person shooter. And this looks like it's kind of even more in that direction, which makes me think like, despite the whole music issue, this one might actually be a Doom game that's like, that's moved far enough away from FPS and far enough into action that it might actually be like something that would be interesting for me to play now. Like it might actually appeal to me now, I'm like right on the cusp of it now. I'm just still not really all that into first-person games in general. But what did you think of the trailer?
No, it looks awesome. I can't wait to play it.
I like the gun with that had the skull crushing clip or whatever.
Yeah, the skull crushing clip, the shield with like the blades, the chainsaw shield.
Yeah, spins and you can launch it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All that stuff looks really cool. So I don't know. Maybe I'll check it out. This would be a first for me because I'm not really into the Doom. I played Doom on, like we mentioned, on PC because that was such a huge cultural shift moment, So of course I played it.
Right. Oh yeah.
Because I'm old. I was around for that and
it was
the advent of shareware.
It was also like it was ported to like literally every platform, even platforms had no business being ported to.
They put it on that keyboard for the Mac that's got like that row.
Yeah.
It's got like that one single row of keys that's a touchscreen, and they ported the game so that it ran on that touchscreen.
I mean, back in the day, like, they ported it to SNES, and bless them, they tried to get the Super Nintendo to run Doom.
I used to have a Google Watch, like a Android watch, like one of the really, really early ones, like pre-Apple Watch days. And one of the first things that they put on that, somebody managed to hack and get Doom running on it.
Right. We should move on to other things.
Okay, so next up we have Gears of War E-Day. So I just don't know or care anything about the Gears of War franchise. Tell me about this and why you're excited.
Okay. Well, I mean, I've been a Gears fan since the first game came out on the 360. The original game, when it came out, like, it was a graphical showcase. It was like the first thing that generation that, like, literally from like a visual perspective just made me say wow, because up to that point,
well, that was the showpiece for what, Unreal Engine 3, right?
Yes.
At the time, that
And
was
I-
kind of the game that was the showpiece for that.
Yeah, it was a showpiece, yeah, and admittedly up to that point, that generation, like, was seeming to be a bit underwhelming in the graphics department. Yeah, it didn't seem like it was a huge leap from the Xbox or, PS2 or GameCube. Until that game. Until Gears showed up on Unreal Engine 3 and, like, it was definitely not a game that looked like you could run it on previous gen systems. And to boot, like, it was a fun game, it had a good story to it.
It also kind of popularized the cover shooter.
Yes.
As like a thing. That really wasn't a thing before.
Yeah, that was like the main mechanic, was taking cover and shooting it. They took a lot of inspiration from Resident Evil 4 in the gameplay design as well. It's just a fun, solid game. And the rest of the games have been pretty much similar. They've just been solid games. I've played through all of them, and I've been a fan of the series. And the last one that just came out, Gears 5, came out. It had like open world segments and stuff. But we were expecting Gears 6. That was the big expectation. We were expecting Gears 6 to continue the story, especially since, Gears 5 doesn't like conclude the story in any way. There's still like more to go. But this was a story because this isn't continuing the story. This is going back to the beginning of the story. Mm-hmm. So E-Day, so you're not familiar with Gears, so I'm going to educate you on some Gears lore here. This is important. So it's called Gears E-Day. E-Day refers to Emergence Day. And so in the lore of Gears, the nations of this world, they were at war for a long time. It was called the Pendulum Wars. And they were fighting each other. And then as soon as the Pendulum Wars ended and the main coalition faction won the war, in the middle of celebrations, holes were being burst in the earth, and these monsters, these creatures nobody had seen before or knew existed, called the Locust, started emerging, started appearing, and just murdering and killing everybody. Mm-hmm. And so it's like the war ended, but now there's a new threat. Mm-hmm. And so that was the backstory of the games. Then this is taking you back to when that happens. In the trailer shows the main character of the first Gears game, Marcus Phoenix, and the trailer this is his first time encountering a Locust, and he's fighting for his life.
Yeah, you see something he's kind of young, and then he puts on that bandana or whatever that I guess is the signature of Marcus.
Yeah, that's his signature. He wears that bandana on the other games. But yeah, this is his first time encountering a Locust, and he's really getting his ass kicked by it, because he doesn't know what the hell's going on. It's a really cool thing for Gears fans, and the developers are promising that they're going to use this to make the Locust scary again, because they kind of became pedestrian enemies in the later games. And I don't know, it's exciting to me.
So riddle me this: whatever happened to Cliffy B?
He's retired from gaming.
Retired? Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's no longer in the gaming industry.
Huh. He's making strawberry jams now. Artisanal strawberry jam.
But I did say I did see him on Twitter reacting to the Gears of War E-Day trailer, and he had a lot of positive things to say. He said it was basically perfect. He was saying, oh yeah, this is how I imagined, Marcus would react to Emergence Day and stuff like that. The only criticism he had is, the coalition said locusts, and he said, no, it's not locust with an S, it's just the locust. You don't say sheeps. You say sheep.
Alright, and then the next trailer we got was for Indiana Jones and the Great Circle.
Yeah.
We had a scene that looked straight out of an Indiana Jones movie. It just had that same kind of pacing and style to it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, this looks it looks like a classic Indiana Jones film, which is great. It has authenticity. Troy Baker doing his best Harrison Ford impression.
Like I said to you before, to me, it doesn't sound like a Harrison Ford performance, but it sounds like Harrison Ford's voice. So it sounds like Harrison Ford at a table read.
Right, yeah. It looks fun. This is by Machine Games, who does the Wolfenstein games, so they know a thing or two about the game where the protagonist fights Nazis. Yeah.
You know a thing or two about Nazi killing?
Yeah, exactly. It looks solid. Looks like it's going to be a fun time.
Our next trailer was Expedition 33. Now this game's interesting because it very much looks like a Western game. If you just look at the aesthetics of the world and the character designs.
You tell aesthetically. The gameplay looks Japanese.
Yeah, the gameplay is straight up JRPG.
Yes.
Which is an interesting, it's an interesting kind of a clash there because it's straight up JRPG in gameplay style, but it's straight up WRPG in like every other way in the aesthetics of the look. So yeah, like, is this something that you're interested in playing?
Oh, it looks amazing. It's got, I love like the gameplay, the turn-based battle style. It's got a really fascinating premise. This looks like it's going to be solid.
The next two games, I have some things to say about them besides this, but the main reason I'm going to mention these next two games is that there is a visual style that has to do with animation rather than the actual like character designs or world design or like any kind of visual aesthetic like that. It has to do with the animation aesthetic. And this is something that's kind of become more popularized in the Spider-Verse movies, for example, where they kind of took the look of like, they used CG animation, but then made it look almost stop motion-y. Like they made it kind of framey. Like instead of animating every frame, they do like a keyframe every other frame kind of thing. It's called animating on twos. And that's a style in animation. And they did it using CG animation, which was kind of revolutionary at the time. And the effect they did with the Spider-Verse movies is that they had Miles Morales animating on twos, while Peter Parker and other like major characters animated on ones. And what they're trying to show is that Miles Morales was inexperienced, and they were doing that through the look of his animation. Like he didn't move as smoothly. And that style, like the idea of that style being used in CG animation became like really popular. And now you have stuff like the Teenage Ninja Turtles movie, like was borrowing a lot of the aesthetics. The recent one, the Mutant Mayhem, borrowed a lot of the visual aesthetics from like, you know, the Spider-Verse movies and stuff in that same way to make that movie. And we've been seeing more and more stuff that's kind of using that to kind of give like this weird kind of almost stop motion look to something that's fully CG. But now we're seeing it in games. And the two that I'm seeing where I've really noticed it is South of Midnight and Fragpunk. So I'm going to talk about South of Midnight first, because besides that, what South of Midnight reminds me of is I read this book by Eoin Colfer and the book's called High Fire, and it's about this dragon that lives in like the swamps of like Louisiana. And he's just like a swamp creature, and he talks with like a Louisiana accent, and he's kind of like human shaped, but he's like a dragon. And he's ends up befriending this kid that ends up like working for him. And it's got that kind of like whole dirty South aesthetic to it, but it's all fantastical. There's like dragons and shit, you know? But it's got this kind of dirty South like attitude and aesthetic, and it takes place in the swamps and stuff like that. And so besides the animation stuff, that's what South of Midnight immediately reminded me of. It's that dirty South, like kind of Louisiana swamp kind of aesthetic, but with like fantastical elements.
Right. Oh yeah. And it looks stylistically, it looks fantastic.
Yeah. And then you add in that, like I said, that animating on twos, that weird stop motion animation aesthetic, and it just makes it really interesting, makes it really pop. The next game that also kind of was using this kind of animation style is Fragpunk, which is a very different type of game. It's like a kind of an urban arena. What do you call that? What's the genre called?
Oh, hero shooter.
Yeah, like Overwatch kind of type thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like an Overwatch type game, but it's got this kind of weird visual aesthetic. And beyond that stuff, again, inspired by like Spider-Verse, it does a lot of stuff with like just effects that look like, you know, hand-drawn effects. It reminds me of both Spider-Verse and also like some of the stuff in Arcane that did that kind of stuff too. But we're seeing it here used in a game, which is like new. It's new to kind of see it used in this way. And yeah, the other thing that's interesting about Fragpunk is that you can like break the rules. You can get cards that allow you to like change the rule sets. So they did something where you'd have like a Grim Reaper behind you, and if you got someone's life force down to a certain amount, like they were automatically killed or something. It was like an effect. And another one that they did like at the end of the trailer had like a character doing one that like swapped their health bar or something with like their opponents. And then that made their opponent who had used that instant death thing as their bonus card ended up killing themselves because they had their opponent's health bar or something. So it's like, I like that kind of stuff. I mean, we talked about Octopath Traveler before, and that game had that kind of stuff. Disgaea is a game franchise I really like, has that kind of stuff where like I remember in Disgaea there was a whole mechanic where you could say, hey, the items in the store are too expensive, and then you could like have a court hearing about it. And if you won the court hearing the item prices would be dropped.
That's
And
hilarious.
some of the stuff was just like real simple kind of stuff like that, but some of it got like straight up like game breaking, where you could like break the game wide open by like changing the rules and by doing hearings and stuff. And I love it when games let you do that. When games just say, okay, we have a straightforward game here. We have a cool engine and stuff that works. But on top of that, we're just going to let you break this game wide open. And I love the idea that I'm not really into hero shooters. I haven't really played any of them. I never played Overwatch or anything. But I just love the idea of games diving into like game breaking mechanics.
Oh, yeah.
And embracing them. But that is Fragpunk. The next game we're going to be talking about is Avowed. This is one that you were really excited about. Tell me about Avowed.
Avowed is a new RPG by Obsidian. They were developers of a lot of RPGs, Pillars of Eternity, Fallout New Vegas, The Outer
Most
Worlds.
importantly, that one with the shrunken people or whatever. And
Oh, yeah, Grounded, yeah.
yeah, Grounded. That's their most important game, right? The most known.
Right. That's not RPG, but yeah. This is their fantasy, you know, this is like, you know, this looks like a riff on the Elder Scrolls. This is not going to be like the Elder Scrolls. You know, this is
Because Obsidian has a sense of humor.
right. Well, I don't think this is supposed to be like a big open world game. I think this is like more structured, more linear. It looks like there's like a lot of focus on the combat mechanics and the combat. And also like situational stuff like dealing with like NPCs or situations. Like they did like a gameplay deep dive on the Xbox podcast. And they talked about a situation like where like you have to get this item from like this character. You have to get this item and you can go through the area and piss everybody off and just like murder them, and then like the leader of the area will then naturally want to kill you, and it'll be a big boss battle. Or you can stealth your way through the area and not kill anybody, and the leader of the area will just be friendly with you and just like give you the item without a fight. So it looks like you have like choices on how you can tackle like quests and stuff. That looks really cool. I don't know. I'm excited for it.
And the last thing we're going to be talking about in this not E3 trailer segment is the Devolver Direct 2024, Valve's 15th birthday party.
Oh, yes.
So, we're not really actually even talking about any of the games that Devolver showed, but what I always say is that the only publishers that know how to properly do a direct, which is funny that everybody's calling them directs now, because that word had no meaning that would have associated it with anything until Nintendo started using it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of like the way everybody says Xerox when they mean like photocopy. Like, they just use that word and it only means anything to the company Xerox, you know? It's kind of that same kind of thing. But, as I was saying, Nintendo and Devolver are the only companies that, like, know how to actually pace and make an entertaining and fun, like, digital presentation. And I think Microsoft actually did an okay presentation this year, but it was just because they paced it fast enough and they put enough good-looking games.
Yeah, they had interesting games this year. That was my thing.
But, like, I know, for example, Sony has done before where they've had good games and the presentation was boring as shit.
Right, yeah.
Like, they slowed the pace down between every time a game reveal would end, went into some modern art animation for like 10 minutes.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And so by the time you got to the next game, you were already bored and weren't interested anymore. It's like they failed so bad at doing it. And then you watch like an Ubisoft conference and they're just cringe as shit. And like they just, nobody can seem to do it right. And the only two that can do it right are Nintendo and Devolver. And it's gotten to the point with the Devolver where it's like, I watched every Devolver conference. It's like one of my most excited conferences to watch every E3. And I don't give a shit about any of the games they show. It's like a short film that comes out every June.
Oh, yeah. It's just this crazy, like, parody of the idea of, like, game conferences or directs or whatever.
Yeah, and it's like going back to, like, my days in high school watching trauma films and shit, you know?
Right, yeah, exactly. Because they're all insane.
Yeah.
Love Devolver stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's pretty much all I gotta say. There was nothing to mention game-wise about it. Just watch the Devolver Direct. It's called Valve's 15th birthday party. It's weird as shit. It's thoroughly entertaining. It's basically a short film with a bunch of, like, game trailers stuffed inside of it. It's great. Don't really care about any of the games. The trailer is great. The presentation is great. But that's it. That's it for our On Beat segment. And now we're going to move on to our final segment, which is not a typical segment. I don't think we really have a bumper for it. Maybe I'll just throw in like one of our old switcheroo bumpers in its place, because we don't really have a bumper for wild speculation or anything.
It's the wild speculation segment.
Wild speculation.
You're right. Not based on any kind of reality. Okay. We're workshopping it.
Yeah. But basically, for this segment, we are going to be making predictions for the June 2024 Nintendo Direct. I've created a structure for our predictions. Some of them are just straight up like, what's the number of this? Or is this going to happen or not? And then there's some that are asking for specific predictions within certain criteria. And so not only did Will and I make our own predictions, but we also reached out to some of our friends on Game Witness, and they provided some predictions as well. So we're going to go over all of these predictions, and we're going to start off with the first one, which is Shadow Drop. So I'm going to start off with our two guest predictions and then go to you. But Shadow Drop is when a game is shown at a conference and then it comes out that day. Like
I want to hear your prediction first.
You want to hear mine first?
Before, do yours first.
Okay, I'll do mine first on this one. My Shadow Drop prediction is that we're getting Metroid Prime 2 and 3, but they're not full remasters.
No.
They're just ports.
They're
just HD ports, that's it.
That's not a bad guess.
I think that they're going to show a trailer for Metroid Prime 2, and then they're going to surprise us with a trailer of Metroid Prime 3, and then they're going to say out later today or something, and that's it.
Yeah,
it's not going to be a big remaster like with the Metroid Prime remaster.
No, because that would take development resources that they probably wouldn't want to put into that.
Do you want to do yours next, or do you want me to do our guest ones next?
Do the guest ones next.
Okay, so Manganian, he predicted Metroid Prime Echoes. So I think he's going along the lines of...
He's thinking the same thing you are.
I think he's thinking more along the lines of the remake of the first one. That it's actually going to be...
Oh, that's going to be like a full... Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't think so.
And Nick, who's been on this podcast before, he goes by the handle Shoulder. He had the same prediction, which was Metroid Prime 2 Echoes.
Well, everybody's thinking Metroid. Okay.
I think since the first one came out, everyone's just been waiting for the other ones to come out.
Waiting for the other ones. I'm going to go in a completely different direction.
Combo Breaker.
Combo Breaker, yeah. I'm thinking the most likely thing is probably like a new entry in the 99 series for the Nintendo Switch.
Mm-hmm.
And for the next 99, I'm thinking of a game series that has had an entry on every single Nintendo system to date, bar the Virtual Boy, but that is not on Switch, or doesn't have like an original entry on. It's on Nintendo Switch online, but because...
I think it's Star Fox? No,
nope.
Because Star Fox is on NES, and wasn't on Game Boy, I think.
It's on NES, Game Boy, SNES, N64, Game Boy Advance, DS, 3DS, Wii, and Wii U. And GameCube. It's non-Switch.
What game are you thinking of?
Dr. Mario 99.
Okay. Well, you know what? When Tetris 99 came out, they eventually made a version of it that you could buy that had like regular Tetris as well.
Yes.
So the 99 stuff kind of freaks me out. Like I played Tetris 99. I think I got second place. I played it like 5 times. I got second place and I stopped playing because it was just too tense for me. I started freaking out. I started having like almost a panic attack playing it. It was too tense. I just couldn't do it. But I fucking love Dr. Mario. So if that means that we just get any kind of Dr. Mario that's like a modern Dr. Mario, because the only Dr. Marios we can play on Switch are on Nintendo Switch Online. And the big problem with that is that they're not modern. So they have like those control hang-ups that the old ones had before they refined them. So you can't hit up to make a piece drop, for example. Like that doesn't work on the versions that are on Nintendo Switch Online. So it's like, I love that game and I would want it back. So for that alone, I would be really excited for Dr. Mario 99 if they offer like a way to play just regular Dr. Mario in that, especially.
Right. And then,
I'd probably play it as well, the 99 version, like 5 times or something, and then be like, I can't play this anymore.
Yeah. Especially since they shadow dropped F-Zero like 99, like that came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So
and Mario 35 for the 35th anniversary too.
Yes. Which you could only play this while it's Mario's anniversary.
Yeah.
Nintendo being weird.
That's so weird, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to wait for like Mario 40, I guess. I don't know.
Right, for it to come back. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me as like another 9-9 game. Like, makes the most sense to me for a Shadow Drop, but like, it could be the Metroid games.
Let's move on to our next round of predictions. This section I call Portpocalypse. And everyone complains about it, but every Nintendo Direct, about half the games we get are ports. They're either ports from other systems, from third parties going, oh shit, Switch is successful. Now we gotta put games on it. What do we have in our back catalog that we can shove on it now? Or we get ports of like the Wii U, because the Wii U failed so miserably as a commercial product, but it had a lot of great games on it. And so Nintendo's like, well, we gotta repurpose these. So they put a bunch of them out there. So yeah, a port of any kind. And for this one, instead of making one prediction, since there's so many ports, we said we need 3 predictions from each person. So I'm gonna start off with our guest predictions. Manganian predicted F-Zero GX and Hi-Fi Rush. He only predicted those 2.
Okay.
So those are the 2 he predicted. I'd
love
love
F-Zero.
an F-Zero GX one.
Oh, yeah.
Hi-Fi Rush I don't think's gonna happen. I think we're gonna get that on the Switch successor. I think that's likely a launch game.
I have
on the
no
Switch
clue.
successor.
That studio's shut down now, so
Yeah,
who
but they don't
knows?
need the studio to port it.
Right.
Yeah, and that game got ported over to PS5. So
This did.
I think we're gonna get that on the Switch successor like close to launch. I don't think we're gonna get it on Switch.
Right. Yeah, it's not coming
But
to Switch. I don't
F-Zero
think so.
GX I would love. F-Zero GX was also a prediction made by Shoulder, who predicted 4 games, but he added the F-Zero GX one later, and he said basically, you can take off one of those, but didn't say which one. So I'm just gonna say
Well, just
his
say
4
all
predictions.
4. Yeah.
He predicted Twilight Princess HD, Wind Waker HD,
Fair.
Xenoblade Chronicles X, and F-Zero GX.
Oh,
Those
well,
are
if
his
that's-
predictions.
Yeah, okay.
For some reason, I used to think that Twilight Princess HD and Wind Waker HD were an eventuality. Now I don't. Now I think that those are going to be put out on the Switch successor, and they're going to do them to fill the gaps, because every new system has periods of lag or periods of drought, and I think they're just basically going to they're going to drop them when that happens.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It'd be weird if they did, because it makes more sense on the current Switch, because you know, the current Switch is so close in power and visual appearance to the Wii U.
Yeah.
They'd really look out of place on the Switch successor.
I just don't think that they need it for their lineup for the Switch.
Right, yeah.
And they haven't done it yet. And it's like, if they had done it 3 years ago, it would have made more sense than them doing it now when the Switch is coming to an end.
Yeah, I kind of feel like the moment has passed.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think. And so I think if we ever get them, it's going to be to fill out a drought period on the Switch successor. Like, every system, like somewhere within the first or second year, there's like a spot where there's like 2 or 3 months where there's nothing interesting coming out. And it's like a perfect time to just go, oh, here's a Zelda collection.
Right, yeah.
And I think if we ever get it, that's when we're gonna get it, is like that. Xenoblade Chronicles X is like, yeah, that's an original game on the Wii U. Yeah, it's one of the few remaining ones that hasn't come over to the Switch. So yeah, that makes sense. And I know Monolith Soft has said that they could do it. They were asked directly in an interview like years ago, like if it could be ported over, and they were like, yeah, that was basically it. That was the story, you know? So yeah, and again, F-Zero GX, I would love like an HD remaster or remake of GX. I would adore that. Tell me what your Portpocalypse picks are.
My picks are, okay, so I think that we've pretty much exhausted the Wii U ports. I think we're in the era of 3DS ports. We saw, like, Miitomo came out a while back, and now, like, Luigi's Mansion 2 is coming out at the end of this month.
Let me stop you real quick and just say we're along the same lines.
Okay.
Carry on.
We are in the era of 3DS ports, so with that in mind, I think we're getting Metroid Samus Returns and Kid Icarus Uprising, and I also do think, like, they will announce the Zelda Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD, possibly as a bundle, with both games in one.
Okay. So 2 of those are the same as 2 of mine.
Okay.
So I'll just bring up mine because we're going to be talking about the same games. My picks are Kid Icarus Uprising with finally usable controls. Metroid Samus Returns, which I was actively angry that wasn't coming to Switch because that was announced after the Switch came out, with the Switch.
Yeah, it was announced in 2017, like after the Switch came out.
Yeah, and I was pissed because
you're one of those people.
Well, the thing is, I'm not I don't like playing games handheld. I play Switch, but I play it docked. I'm a console gamer. I do not like playing games handheld. It's uncomfortable for me. I just have never enjoyed that sensation. My hands get cramped up. I just do not like it. I want to sit down on a couch and play a game. And I am a huge Metroid fan, and I was dying for it. And we started seeing it was Metroid, and I'm like, holy fuck, yes, we're getting Metroid. And then it was for 3DS.
And then the monkey's paw
and I was
curled.
like, what the fuck?
The finger on the monkey's paw curled.
Yeah, because if it was on the Switch, then it would have satisfied you if you were a handheld gamer or a console gamer.
Oh,
it
yeah,
matter.
yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And we eventually ended up getting Dread, which is better anyways. But yeah, I've always been like, why aren't we getting,
Samus Returns seems like, prime for a Switch port, right?
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Yeah, I mean, really, it should be.
It should be, yeah, right, yeah.
And Kid Icarus Uprising, like I said, with good controls finally. They had like the weirdest bad control conceit, and, they can fix that with a console version, so, where you don't have to use the stylus to aim with like it's an analog stick.
Right.
So that would be amazing as well. That would make a lot of sense. And then, like I said, my third pick is Xenoblade Chronicles X, which was also...
I would like to see Xenoblade Chronicles X.
Shoulder sticks, yeah. And I think one of the things that's interesting is that I don't think that there's much future in the X spin-off of the Xenoblade Chronicles series. And it's unfortunate because Xenoblade Chronicles X ended on a cliffhanger. And I think the way that you can resolve that is that...
They could come out with like an additional mission.
An epilogue chapter. And that's exactly what they did with the remake of Xenoblade Chronicles 1 had an epilogue chapter added onto it. And Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and 3 both had DLC chapters that were like new games basically that added onto it. So if they ported that over, then they could either do an epilogue chapter that's included with the game or like a DLC chapter that follows it up and finishes off the story. And I think that's a clean way that they can finish the story and end the cliffhanger without having to like go back to doing another Xenoblade Chronicles X, which I think they're not really into anymore. I think they just want to do the regular Xenoblade Chronicles franchise now. I don't think they want to continue the X franchise. So that would be a good way to kind of wrap all of that up. Plus, it's a good game that a lot of people didn't get a chance to play. So it would be cool to go in there, clean up a few rough edges, add in a few new little bits and bobbles, some convenience, some, quality of life improvements, that they could make to the game, and then add an epilogue chapter, and it'd be a nice package. I really like the idea of that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Absolutely.
And we already talked about the Zelda games as well.
Yeah, we talked enough about those, to be honest.
Our next two predictions are really kind of simple ones. These are just either a number or a yes-no answer. So what we're going with is my first question. I said, what is going to be the number of farming games? And by farming games, I don't necessarily mean a whole game about farming, but it became a joke that at every Nintendo conference, at every Direct, there was like just a shit ton of games with farming in them.
There wasn't like so many at last Direct, but there was the one Direct, where there was like a lot of games that just had farming in them. And
that's where like Square had that one
Harvestella.
Yeah, Harvestella. And then
there was like several other games I can't like quite remember, but they were like focused on farming, and it kind of became a joke with that Direct. And then there's like always been like a couple subsequently.
I know there was like a streamer that was doing something where he was giving out gift subscriptions every time there was a farming game showing at a Nintendo Direct at one point. So it's like, it's that kind of thing, there's so many of them. It became a joke. At the last one, you and I joked, I can't remember what type of game we said supplanted it, but we had joked, I don't think on the podcast, I think we just did it when we were talking one time, but we joked that there weren't that many farming games at this Direct, but there was another type of game that was kind of obscure, and I don't even remember what type it was, that we were like, so this is the new farming game for Nintendo Directs,
Yeah, right.
But even in that Direct, there were still like 2 farming games.
Okay, so are you going to get to your prediction?
I'll start with the guest predictions. Manganian said there'd be 3. Shoulder said 2. I said 3.
I'm going to say 0. I'm going to be radical on this and say probably nothing on the horizon. I'm probably wrong.
That's a bold choice.
It's a bold choice when they can announce a new story of seasons or something, yes. But I'm going to say no.
Alright, and then our next question is Metroid Prime 4. That's the question.
Well,
are we going to see Metroid Prime 4?
The question is deeper than that, really. The question question hinges on what platform is Metroid Prime for. If this is a next-gen Switch 2 game, then no. If it's a Switch game, then yes. There's no other way around it. If this is going to be on Switch, this is Nintendo's last chance to show it. If it's not going to be on Switch, they're not going to show it because this is not the Direct to talk about Switch 2 games. So
that's the question.
So bearing that in mind, what platform is this game going to be for? I'm going to say yes. It's going to disappoint people heavily that this is not a next-gen game, but I feel like this has been in development a long time. It's still going to be Metroid Prime, still going to be fantastic, and bear in mind, like, even if it's like a Switch game, even if it's not going to have all the visual pizzazz that would be offered by next-gen Switch, the last Metroid Prime game was on the Wii, so this is still going to be a huge visual upgrade from the last Metroid Prime game. So, like,
I say the opposite. I say no. I'm firmly in the camp that it's going to be a next-gen Switch game. I think it's going to be close to launch. It's going to be launch window. And it's going to be the tech showpiece for that game. In the same way Gears of War was like the tech showpiece for Unreal Engine 3, this is going to be the tech showpiece for the Switch successor. I think this is going to be the game that's going to look like a PS5 game somehow. When all the other Switch successor games look more like a PS4 game.
Think about when you first played Metroid Prime on the GameCube, or at least when I did. I was blown away. I mean, the GameCube was a pretty powerful system. When
a lot of it was attention to detail.
But it was, I mean, the GameCube was a powerful system, but it was a lot of attention. It was the art style, too.
Yeah.
The art style was like an attention to detail, like when...
It's all those little touches, the fogging up of the screen, the visor.
The visor, seeing Samus' reflection in the visor.
Yeah, a lot of it had to do with that first person kind of wall breaking kind of stuff,
Yeah, Retro just did amazing things and right out the gate established themselves as a world-class developer, and you're going to see a lot more of that going forward.
I think that Retro's value to Nintendo is less as like a developer of hit games that they make, and it's more as like a techie company. Nintendo likes to have techie companies around them. They did that. I mean, they had close relationships with like Factor 5, and they had close relationships with like other developers like that. Like, there's a whole weird thing on the Wii with that high voltage that was doing all sorts of weird techie stuff on that system, pushing it as far as it could go, basically. I think that always kind of happens around Nintendo, and I think that Nintendo, like a Metroid Prime game at best, even on Switch, even as like a Switch game late, with like 120.
I think this is still going to look amazing on the Switch.
I think it's still good on Switch. I'm just saying, like, sales wise, it might push 5 million tops.
Right.
Like, I don't even think it could be that, but I think that's about as high as it could possibly go. And then, to me, that means that, like, the idea of them, like, waiting for, we need, like, as many users on the platform as possible is kind of irrelevant, because the kind of people that are into Metroid Prime 3 are the kind of, like, people that buy a Nintendo system on launch day. So I don't think it really matters, like, the install base really matters for that game having success or not. Like, it'll matter a little bit, but not that much. Like, I think it's going to sell to its audience, period. Right. and if it's on a new system, it'll just drive them to early adopt that system. So I don't think that advantage holds any weight anymore. And so then you go, okay, so where you use Metroid Prime 4 to Nintendo's best advantage. And to me, that means it has to be a tech showpiece. And Retro isn't just a good tech company, a good techie company that has really good art direction and a lot of attention to detail and can do a lot of like clever tricks and stuff to make things look great. But they've also been employed by Nintendo to like help other developers do better stuff on Nintendo. I've mentioned before on the podcast that, like, for example, Red Steel 2, two developers from Retro like went to Ubisoft and like stayed with them for like a couple of weeks and hung out and showed them how to do like motion controls and stuff and IR aiming and how to make it work really well and stuff, and gave them advice on their game and helped them out with that kind of stuff. I think that's kind of more where Retro is valuable to Nintendo, is more in that than in the actual games they sell. And I think that from that standpoint, it's going to be the game that sells like the technical capabilities of the Switch successor. It's the showpiece. It's the one that's going to shame the third-party developers that don't put in the effort.
Right, yeah.
And make them have to put in more effort.
That's certainly what everybody wants.
Yeah.
I say my prediction
it's not just what I expect, it's what I want as well. honest.
Right. Oh, yeah. No, it's what I prefer as well. I'm just saying, like, if my prediction comes true, like, a lot of people are going to be mad. I mean, I'm going to be, like, disappointed, but it's also going to be, like, it's still going to be a fantastic game. It's still going to look great. So I'm not going to be, like, as upset as, like, some other people probably will be, but I would expect a lot more, like, more hype deflating than revealing Metroid Prime 4 should be.
I should add that Manganian and Shoulder both agree with you. They think it's coming to Switch.
They think it's going to be okay.
It's going to be at the show.
So that's going to be like the interesting thing to watch for at this Direct.
And if it's showing, it's probably going to be the last thing showing.
Yeah, it's going to be the last
almost
thing
assuredly, or the first thing.
It's going to be it's going to be interesting to watch because like you'll get your answer from this Direct either way because if they don't show it or mention it, there's no other place they can before they launch the next generation Switch. So it's kind of like it's going to be a next gen game if it doesn't show up.
Yeah, and if it does show up, I think there's only kind of 2 or 3 ways it can show up in the conference. One is that it's the game that opens the show. It's the one more thing game at the very end of the show. Or it's like the second game showing and they show something else Metroid related before. Like, for example,
like
Samus Returns.
Ports. Yeah. Ports of older Metroid
or like
games.
Metroid Prime 2 or something like that. And then they follow that up with Metroid Prime 4, you know?
Yeah, right.
Those are like the only 3 ways. It's too important. It's too big. It's too big of a hype thing for them to not position it as like their marquee game of the show, you know?
Right. Oh, yeah. And now my favorite category.
From out of nowhere. So for this category, this is just wild, out of nowhere idea.
It's wild card, baby.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go first with our guest ones and save ours for last.
Okay.
Manganian says Kid Icarus remake or sequel. So he's expecting it could be Kid Icarus Uprising, like we talked about in the 4th thing, or like a brand new Kid Icarus game in that style.
That would be interesting. I'd be interested in that.
Shoulder said the new Monolith Soft game. And what I think he means by that is not Xenoblade Chronicles, because Monolith Soft ages ago said that they had a more mature RPG, like aimed more at an adult audience in development. This is like 6 years ago plus, at least ago, that they mentioned that they had this game in development. They said they had like 3 or 4 different games in development. One of those ended up being Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and I'm guessing maybe the DLC epilogue chapter for that, which is like a separate game, was probably one of the other ones. And there's a good chance that if he's talking about just the new Monolith Soft game and he didn't mention a new Xenoblade game, that he means that game, the whatever game that they were talking about. And they released some artwork for it and stuff like a long time ago. Some people were thinking it might be like Zelda related, like a Zelda spin-off of some sort. But that is Shoulder's guess. I'm guessing that that's the one he means, but we'll give him the point if any new Monolith Soft game is shown.
Yeah, okay, fair.
My pick, I'll let you go last, is it's like Manganian's pick where he said Kid Icarus either a remake or a sequel, except I'm saying it for F-Zero.
Oh,
Either a new F-Zero or GX remaster.
100% that was me. So I predicted a new F-Zero SX, and why not? F-Zero 99 was a surprise.
Switch X, yeah.
Yeah, Switch X, yeah.
And they could add all the GX and AX courses.
Yeah, they could add the courses, yeah. But yeah, this is going to be like a new game with new cars, new tracks. You could add classic tracks too. Why not? And my thinking is like, obviously I want F-Zero to come back, but like also like, F-Zero 99 was a surprise hit for Nintendo, you know, like it's done really well. And I think, you know, it's prime time to capitalize on that and put out like a new game.
Yeah, even the fact that they did an F-Zero 99 at all makes me think that they had a plan beyond that for the franchise.
Yeah, exactly. They were obviously thinking
knew that they were going to do something with it, and they knew they could get out F-Zero 99 to kind of test the waters first.
Yes.
And not that they tested the waters and then they go, okay, let's put a game in development. It'll be ready in 5 years. But that they already had something in development and wanted to see how they could put it out. You know, and I agree with you on that. I would love it if they showed an F-Zero game. And I think if it's new, if it's not a GX remaster, which I would also take, by the way, I would adore a GX remaster. I'd prefer something new, but I would take a GX remaster in a second.
Oh, same. GX is awesome, but yeah, I would prefer a new game.
Yeah, but if it's a new game and not a remaster, then like we mentioned about Metroid Prime 4, if it shows up that it could only be at the beginning during the end or after another Metroid reveal. Like, it's kind of the same thing with F-Zero. If Metroid Prime and F-Zero are both there, and Metroid Prime 4 is like the game that closes the show, then F-Zero would be the game that opened it, you know?
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. No, 100% agree there.
Yeah, I agree with that, but, you know, a lot of that's just that we're big F-Zero fans and we've been starved. We're thirsty.
Exactly.
We're in the Sahara.
This is the segment for wishful thinking, so that's my wishful thinking.
We see the mirage across the horizon and we're like gulping down that water before we even realize if it's sand or not.
Exactly.
We're gonna take the Fury Road to the F-Zero game.
F-Zero Fury Road. That's it.
I wouldn't be opposed to that.
No, I wouldn't either.
An F-Zero game with some Mad Max Fury Road influence. That'd actually be kind of cool. But I wouldn't want it to all be set in a desert, but, you know, if they were to, like, take some influence from ideas from that, I would be down for that. Well, that is it for this week's episode. Next week, as I said at the beginning of the show, we might be covering a Nintendo Direct. But if a Nintendo Direct doesn't happen by the time we would do next week's show, then instead we are going to be doing Monkey Man, which is going to be coming available on, I don't remember I think it's on Max. I'm not sure. I should have had this information ahead, but Monkey Man will be coming to streaming next week, in time for us to talk about it. And so we're going to watch that and be ready to talk about that in case the Nintendo Direct doesn't happen, and that will be our topic. If the Nintendo Direct does happen, then Monkey Man gets pushed back a week. So that's kind of our plan for it. So look into that. I've already seen Monkey Man. I'm going to watch it again when it hits on streaming. Will hasn't had a chance to watch it yet, but I know that even before it came out, we were both super excited about it. So it should be a fun conversation. And if it's a Nintendo Direct, you saw how much fun we just had with our predictions. Of course, that's going to be a fun podcast that we'd be excited for. So we'll see what ends up happening next week. It'll be one of those two. But until then, thank you everybody for listening. You can follow me on Twitter. You can follow Will. He is at VoxelHero. I am at Tyson Gifford. All of that's there. You can go to the website, thetotalscreen.com. If you go to the website and open up a container story for any of our podcast episodes, scroll down to the last paragraph. You'll find all of our relevant links to our SoundCloud page, our RSS feed for our podcast, everything. It's all there. Check that out. You can also subscribe to the podcast to your favorite podcast client of choice like Apple Podcasts or Pocket Cast, and the entire backlog of our podcast is available on our YouTube channel, as well as old content from our sites, our various sites over time. So check all of that out. Thank you everybody for listening. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for listening to the OnScreen podcast, the official podcast of The Total Screen. Visit our website at thetotalscreen.com. This podcast can be found on any major podcast client, including Pocket Cast and Apple Podcast. The entire backlog of this podcast and other content can be found on our YouTube channel.